The diplomatic betrayal, the final session ambassador, Elena Vasquez, stood at the center of the Grand Assembly Hall, her hands steady despite the weight of history pressing down upon her shoulders. The massive chamber stretched endlessly above her, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of 1,000 stars visible through the transparent dome. Around her, representatives from 15 different species sat in their designated sections, each group distinctly alien, yet united in their cold stare, directed at the lone human figure below. Elena had served as Earth's primary representative to the Galactic Council for 7 years. She had negotiated trade agreements, resolved territorial disputes, and built bridges between species that had never trusted each other before. She believed in the power of diplomacy, in the possibility of peaceful coexistence among the stars. Today, she would learn how naive that belief had been. The chamber fell silent as Archon Zeltharis of the Vorthan Dominion rose from his elevated platform. His tall, serpentine form moved with fluid grace, his scaled skin shimmering with an inner light that spoke of ancient power. When he spoke, his voice carried across the hall with the weight of absolute authority. Ambassador Vasquez, he began, his words precise and cutting, "You stand accused of conspiracy against the Galactic Council and preparation for acts of aggression against peaceful member species." Elena felt her heart skip a beat, but her diplomatic training kept her expression neutral. "I'm afraid there must be some misunderstanding, Archon. Earth has violated no treaties and harbors no aggressive intentions toward any council member." The Archon's eyes narrowed to golden slits. Evidence would suggest otherwise. He gestured to the massive display screen that materialized above Elena's head. Images began to play, showing what appeared to be human military vessels conducting exercises in deep space. The ships were unlike anything Elena had ever seen, sleek and predatory, bristling with weapons that seemed far beyond Earth's known technology. These vessels were detected by our intelligence networks operating in the Outer Rim territories, Zeltharis continued. Human ships conducting what can only be described as preparation for a war of conquest. Elena stared at the images in genuine confusion. "Archon, I have never seen these ship designs before. Earth's fleet consists of exploration vessels and civilian transports. These images must be fabricated." A murmur of anger rippled through the assembled representatives. Counselor Vrexia of the Aquarian Collective stood, her webbed hands clenched into fists. "Are you suggesting that the Council would manufacture evidence against your species?" Elena realized with growing horror that this was exactly what was happening, but she couldn't prove it. "I'm suggesting that someone has provided you with false information. Perhaps an enemy of both our species seeks to drive a wedge between us." "The evidence is clear," declared Counselor Thane of the Crystalline Hierarchies, his voice ringing like struck metal. "Humanity has expanded to 47 star systems in less than 2 centuries. No species in galactic history has grown so quickly without harboring aggressive intentions." Elena felt the trap closing around her. "Our expansion has been peaceful. We've followed all colonial protocols and respected the territorial claims of every council member. Our growth rate is high because we're efficient, not because we're aggressive." The rigged trial what followed could barely be called a trial. Elena was not permitted to contact Earth or call witnesses in her defense. The evidence against humanity was presented by one council member after another, each piece more damning than the last. Surveillance footage showed human colonies supposedly fortifying their positions. Communication intercepts revealed conversations about defensive preparations that the Council interpreted as plans for attack. Elena recognized the technique. This was not a trial seeking truth, but a predetermined execution designed to look legitimate. Every piece of evidence had been carefully selected and interpreted to support a conclusion that had already been reached. The Council had decided that humanity was a threat, and now they were creating the legal justification to act against Earth. "The pattern is clear," Archon Zeltharis announced as the evidence presentation concluded. "Humanity expands rapidly, fortifies its positions, and develops military capabilities in secret. These are not the actions of a peaceful species seeking coexistence. These are the actions of a species preparing for conquest. Elena made one final attempt to reach them. Honored counselors, I have worked alongside many of you for years. You know me personally. You know my commitment to peace and cooperation. If humanity truly intended aggression, would we have sent diplomats like myself to build relationships with your species? Would we have shared our technology and culture so openly? For a moment, she thought she saw doubt flicker in some of their eyes. Then, Counselor Vextar of the Hive Collective spoke, his insectoid features emotionless. Perhaps that openness was merely a mask to hide your true intentions. The galaxy has seen deceptive species before. The vote was swift and unanimous. Elena was found guilty of conspiracy against the Galactic Council and sentenced to immediate execution. As the sentence was read, she felt a strange calm settle over her. If this was how the Council chose to treat Earth's friendship, then perhaps they deserved what was coming. The execution broadcast the execution chamber was stark and clinical, designed to broadcast the Council's justice to every corner of the galaxy. Elena was strapped to a biodissolution platform, a device that would disintegrate her at the molecular level while keeping her conscious until the final moment. It was meant to be humane, but the psychological impact was devastating. Any final words, Ambassador? Archon Zeltharis asked, his voice carrying across the broadcast network to trillions of beings throughout the galaxy. Elena looked directly into the camera, knowing that her words would reach not just alien audiences, but also the leaders of Earth. To the Council, I say that you have made a grave error. Humanity came to the stars seeking friends and found only fear and jealousy. To my fellow humans, I say that you now know the true nature of our galactic neighbors. Act accordingly. The dissolution beam activated, and Elena Vasquez, Earth's first ambassador to the stars, died as she had lived in service to her species. The broadcast ended with her final scream, a sound that the Council intended as a warning to other potentially aggressive species. They had no idea that they had just signed their own death warrant. Earth's response in the underground situation room beneath the Rockies, President Marcus Chun watched his friend and colleague die in real time. The room was filled with the most powerful people on Earth, but they sat in stunned silence as the woman who had dedicated her life to peace was murdered on galactic television. "Ma'am," said General Patricia Harrison, her voice barely above a whisper, "we've confirmed that the execution was broadcast to every human colony and outpost. The entire species has seen what the Council did to Ambassador Vasquez." President Chen's face remained impassive, but his hands trembled slightly as he reached for the secure communication device. "General, I'm authorizing Protocol Omega. Effective immediately, Earth is withdrawing from all galactic treaties and conventions. We are now in a state of war with the Galactic Council." Harrison nodded grimly. "Mr. President, our deep space assets are already moving into position. The Council believes they've eliminated a threat, but they've actually activated one." Dr. Sarah Kim, head of the Xenobiology Division, looked up from her data pad. "Sir, our analysis suggests that the Council's action was motivated by fear of human expansion rather than any genuine belief that we were planning aggression. They've essentially committed murder to prevent a war that might never have happened." "Then they'll get the war they were so afraid of," Chin replied coldly, "but not the kind they expected." He turned to address the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 50 years, we've been preparing for this possibility. While we sent diplomats to build relationships with alien species, we also built the infrastructure to destroy them if necessary. The Council has shown us that coexistence is impossible. They respond to friendship with fear and peace with violence. The hidden truth what the Galactic Council didn't know was that Earth had been preparing for this moment since first contact. While Elena Vasquez and other diplomats worked to build peaceful relationships, a parallel program had been developing the tools necessary to fight a galactic war. Admiral James Webb, commander of the secret Deep Space Fleet, activated communication links to assets throughout the galaxy. "All units, this is Admiral Webb. Protocol Omega is now active. You are authorized to begin Phase 1 operations." The response came from dozens of hidden bases scattered across human space and beyond. For decades, Earth had been building a network of secret military installations disguised as research stations, mining operations, and trading posts. Each facility was staffed by personnel who had spent their entire careers preparing for this moment, that on the planet Kepler 442b, Dr. Michael Torres received the coded transmission in his laboratory. To his alien colleagues, he was a respected xenobiologist studying local plant life. In reality, he was an intelligence operative who had spent 8 years mapping the planet's defense systems and identifying key targets for elimination. Similar agents on hundreds of worlds throughout Council space began activating long-dormant protocols. The humans who had lived among alien populations for decades, who had been trusted as friends and colleagues, revealed their true purpose. They were not explorers or scientists, but advanced scouts for humanity's war machine. The fleet awakens in the dark spaces between stars. Massive shapes began to stir. The Council's intelligence had detected some of humanity's military preparations, but they had seen only what Earth wanted them to see. The real fleet had been waiting in the cold void for decades, powered down and hidden from detection. Captain Rosa Martinez felt her ship come alive around her as the USS Retribution systems activated for the first time in 15 years. The massive vessel had been built in secret, constructed from materials that wouldn't appear on any galactic trade manifest. Its weapon systems were based on technologies that Earth had developed in complete isolation, designed specifically to counter the known capabilities of Council fleets. Captain, her tactical officer reported, "We're receiving activation codes from the other vessels in the Ghost Fleet. All ships are reporting ready status." Rosa looked at the tactical display, showing 47 other vessels materializing from the darkness. Each ship was a masterpiece of human engineering, designed not for exploration or trade, but for one purpose: the complete destruction of alien military forces. "Set course for the Council homeworlds," she ordered. "It's time to show them what happens when you murder our ambassadors." The Ghost Fleet began to move, and with it, the destiny of the galaxy shifted forever. The Council had expected their execution of Elena Vasquez to intimidate humanity into submission. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. Humanity had tried to join galactic civilization as equals. Now they would rule it as conquerors. The Silent War begins the first strike 72 hours after Elena Vasquez's execution. The war began not with massive fleet battles, but with whispers in the dark. Across the galaxy, humans who had lived peaceful lives among alien populations for decades suddenly revealed their true nature. The transformation was swift, coordinated, and absolutely devastating. Dr. Michael Torres stood in his laboratory on Kepler 442b, looking down at the small device in his palm. For 8 years, he had studied the planet's unique crystalline formations, published papers on alien botany, and attended dinner parties with his Vorthan colleagues. They trusted him completely, never suspecting that his real mission was to catalog every defensive installation and military asset on their world. The device in his hand was a quantum transmitter, capable of sending an instantaneous signal across the galaxy. Torres had been waiting 8 years to use it. He pressed the activation button and felt the weight of millions of lives settling on his shoulders. On the planet's surface, invisible to the native population, a network of human-made devices began to activate. They had been placed over the years by Torres and other deep-cover agents, disguised as scientific instruments and research equipment. Now, they revealed their true purpose as the most sophisticated hacking system ever created. Within minutes, every defensive satellite around Kepler 442b went dark. The planetary shield, generators that had protected the world for centuries, simply shut down. Communication networks crashed as quantum viruses spread through Vorthan computer systems. The planet was blind, deaf, and defenseless. Similar scenes played out across hundreds of worlds as humanity's sleeper network activated simultaneously. The Galactic Council had focused their intelligence efforts on detecting human military buildups, never imagining that their real enemy was already living among them. The Revelation Archon Zeltharis was enjoying a victory celebration in his private chambers when the first reports began arriving. The execution of the human ambassador had been broadcast across the galaxy, and the response from other species had been exactly what the Council had hoped for: fear and respect for Council authority. Archon, his aide, Vextal, burst into the room without waiting for permission. "We're receiving emergency signals from 17 different star systems. They're all reporting simultaneous system failures." Zeltharis set down his ceremonial wine glass, his serpentine features shifting to show concern. "What kind of failures?" "Defense networks, communication arrays, surveillance systems, everything appears to be shutting down at the same time. The pattern is too coordinated to be accidental." Vextal's voice carried a note of panic that Zeltharis had never heard before. The Archon moved to his personal command center, where holographic displays showed the current status of Council space. What he saw made his blood run cold. Red warning indicators were appearing across the galaxy, each one representing a world that had suddenly gone dark. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "Our intelligence networks detected no signs of human military activity near these systems." "Sir," another aide interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the human home system. It's being broadcast on all frequencies." The holographic display shifted to show a middle-aged human woman in a simple blue suit. President Chin stood behind a podium bearing the seal of the United Earth government, her expression calm, but her eyes filled with cold determination. "Citizens of the galaxy," she began, her voice carrying clearly across the quantum communication network. 72 hours ago, the Galactic Council executed Ambassador Elena Vasquez under false charges of conspiracy and aggression. They broadcast her death as a warning to other species about the consequences of challenging Council authority. Zeltharis felt his heart beginning to race. The human leader's tone was too calm, too controlled. This was not the response of a defeated species. The Council made a fundamental error in their assessment of humanity. President Chen continued. "They assumed that because we preferred peace, we were incapable of war. They believed that because we sought cooperation, we were weak. They thought that executing our ambassador would intimidate us into submission." The transmission cut to images of darkened alien worlds, their defense systems failing one by one. They were wrong about everything. The Ghost Fleet revealed Captain Rosa Martinez watched the tactical display from the bridge of the USS Retribution as her ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Vorthan home system. Around her, 47 other vessels materialized from the void, their dark hulls reflecting the light of distant stars. "Captain," her tactical officer reported, "we're detecting multiple alien vessels moving to intercept. The Vorthan First Fleet is deploying to defend their homeworld." Rosa studied the enemy formation. 12 heavy cruisers and 36 escort vessels, all equipped with the most advanced weapons the Vorthan Dominion could produce. Under normal circumstances, they would have been more than a match for any human fleet. These were not normal circumstances. "All ships, this is Admiral Martinez," she announced over the fleet communication network. "We are not here to conquer or occupy. We are here to eliminate a threat to human existence. Show no mercy, take no prisoners, and leave no survivors." The USS Retribution had been designed specifically to counter known alien weapon systems. Its shields were tuned to deflect Vorthan plasma cannons, its armor was proof against their quantum torpedoes, and its weapons could punch through their defensive barriers like paper. But the real advantage was not technological. The alien fleets had been built for ceremonial battles between honorable enemies. They were designed to disable rather than destroy, to capture rather than kill. Human warships had no such limitations. The battle lasted 14 minutes. When it was over, the entire Vorthan First Fleet had been reduced to debris and expanding clouds of superheated gas. The human Ghost Fleet had suffered no casualties. The desperate measures in the emergency session of the Galactic Council, panic had replaced the confidence that had characterized Elena Vasquez's trial. Representatives from 15 species huddled in the Great Chamber, their usual dignity abandoned in the face of an enemy they had never imagined. The reports are consistent across all affected systems. Counselor Vrexia of the Aquarian Collective announced, her webbed hands trembling as she read from her datapad. Human assets embedded in our populations have simultaneously activated some kind of cyber warfare system. Our defensive networks are completely compromised. Counselor Thane of the crystalline hierarchies rose from his seat, his metallic form reflecting the emergency lighting. This is impossible. Our intelligence services have monitored human activities for decades. We would have detected any military buildup of this magnitude. We detected exactly what they wanted us to detect, Archon Zeltharis said quietly. While we were watching their exploration fleets and colony ships, they were building a war machine in the shadows. Every human scientist, every trader, every cultural exchange participant was gathering intelligence and positioning assets. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For 50 years, humanity had been preparing for this moment. Every diplomatic contact, every trade agreement, every cultural exchange had been part of a massive intelligence operation. We need to negotiate, Counselor Vextar of the Hive Collective said. If we can establish communication with their leadership, perhaps we can reach some kind of agreement. Based on what? Zeltharis asked bitterly. We executed their ambassador under false charges and broadcast it to the galaxy. We've shown them that we cannot be trusted, that we will murder their representatives the moment we feel threatened. Why would they negotiate with us? The systematic elimination, the answer came 12 hours later when the human fleet arrived at the Aquarian homeworld. The planet's natural beauty was legendary throughout the galaxy, with vast oceans and floating cities that seemed to dance on the waves. It had been a center of art and culture for millennia. Admiral Chen's fleet didn't bother with orbital bombardment or surface assault. Instead, they deployed atmospheric processors designed to convert the planet's life-giving air into a toxic mixture that would kill every living thing within days. The process was clean, efficient, and absolutely final. Why? The transmission came from Counselor Vrexia as she watched her world beginning to die. Why are you doing this to innocent civilians? Most of our population never even knew about the Council's decision to execute your ambassador. The response came from Admiral Webb, commander of the human deep space fleet. Because you supported a government that murdered our representative. Because you stood by while injustice was committed in your name. Because you proved that coexistence with your species is impossible. Please, Vrexia begged, our children have done nothing wrong. Surely you can show mercy to the innocent. Webb's voice was emotionless. Your children will grow up to be our enemies. They will spend their lives seeking revenge for what we've done to their world. We cannot allow that risk. The transmission ended, and the Aquarian homeworld continued its slow death. By the end of the week, 8 billion aliens would be dead, and humanity would have taken its first step toward galactic dominance. The futile resistance the remaining Council species tried to organize resistance, but their efforts were hampered by the systematic sabotage of their communication and defense networks. Every time they attempted to coordinate a response, human agents embedded in their populations would disrupt their plans that on the crystalline homeworld, Dr. Janet Walsh had spent 12 years studying the unique mineral formations that gave the species their metallic appearance. Her research had been groundbreaking, earning her respect and admiration from her alien colleagues. What they didn't know was that her real mission was to develop biological weapons specifically designed to target crystalline physiology. The virus she released was virtually invisible, spreading through the planet's atmosphere and affecting only the native population. It attacked the neural pathways that controlled their mineral absorption, causing their metallic forms to literally dissolve. The process was slow and agonizing, and there was no cure. Dr. Walsh, her research partner Kithel said, as his own body began to show the first signs of infection, "Why are you doing this? We've worked together for over a decade. I thought we were friends." Janet looked at the dying alien with cold eyes. "We were never friends. You were a subject of study, nothing more. Everything I learned about your people will be used to ensure that your species can never threaten humanity again. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as humanity's true nature revealed itself. The peaceful explorers and curious scientists that the aliens had known for decades were revealed to be advanced scouts for a war machine of unprecedented sophistication. The new reality 6 months after Elena Vasquez's execution, half the Galactic Council species had been eliminated. The survivors huddled in increasingly desperate defensive positions, their once proud civilizations reduced to scattered refugees fleeing the advancing human fleets. And the ruins of the council chamber. President Chun addressed the galaxy from the same podium where the Archon had announced Elena's death sentence. The chamber had been modified with human technology, its alien aesthetics replaced with stark, functional human design. Citizens of the galaxy, she began, 6 months ago, the Galactic Council made a decision that changed the course of galactic history. They chose to respond to human friendship with fear, to human cooperation with suspicion, and to human peace with violence. The camera panned across the empty seats where council representatives had once sat. They are gone now, eliminated not because they were evil, but because they proved that peaceful coexistence with humanity was impossible. They showed us that in this galaxy, there is room for only one dominant species. The transmission switched to show human fleets patrolling the space lanes, human colonies spreading across former alien worlds, and human factories converting alien resources into tools of further expansion. The age of the Galactic Council is over, President Chun announced. The age of humanity has begun. To the surviving species, I offer a simple choice: submit to human authority and live in peace under our protection, or join the Council species in extinction. The broadcast ended, and the galaxy settled into its new reality. Humanity had tried to join galactic civilization as equals and had been rejected. Now they would rule it as conquerors, and the universe would never be the same. The new galactic order, the final siege 1 year after Elena Vasquez's execution, the last bastion of Council resistance, stood defiant against the tide of human expansion. The fortress world of Nexus Prime had been the Council's military headquarters for over 1,000 years, its massive orbital defense platforms and underground bunkers representing the pinnacle of alien military engineering. Admiral Rosa Martinez stood on the bridge of the USS Retribution, now flagship of the combined human fleet, watching the tactical display with cold satisfaction. 300 human warships surrounded the planet, their weapons trained on the remaining Council forces. After months of systematic elimination, only the Hive Collective remained as an organized threat. Admiral, her tactical officer, reported, "We're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface." It's Counselor Vextar of the Hive Collective. The main screen flickered to life, showing the insectoid features of the last surviving Council leader. Vextar's compound eyes reflected the fires burning in the background as his civilization crumbled around him. Admiral Martinez, he said, his voice carrying the weight of desperation, "I formally request terms for surrender. We are willing to submit to human authority if you will spare our civilian population." Rosa studied the alien's face without emotion. The Hive Collective had been among the most vocal supporters of Elena's execution, their representatives celebrating as the human ambassador died. "Counselor Vextar, your species had the opportunity to choose peace when Ambassador Vasquez stood before the Council. Instead, you chose murder. We were afraid," Vextar admitted. "Your species expanded so rapidly, achieved so much in such a short time. We feared that humanity would eventually challenge our authority in the galaxy." "And you were right to fear us," Rosa replied. "But fear does not justify murder. Your species made a choice, and now you must face the consequences." The transmission cut to show the planet's surface, where human ground forces were systematically destroying the last pockets of resistance. The Hive Collective's warrior caste, genetically engineered for combat, was being methodically eliminated by human soldiers whose weapons had been specifically designed to counter their biological advantages, the Biological Solution DR. Sarah Kim watched the final assault from her mobile laboratory aboard the USS Pasteur. As head of the Xenobiology Division, she had spent the past year developing the ultimate solution to the alien threat. The work had been distasteful but necessary. Dr. Kim, her assistant Dr. Mark Rivera called out, "The atmospheric processors are reporting successful deployment. The biological agent is spreading according to projections." Sarah nodded grimly. The weapon she had created was elegant in its simplicity. It targeted the specific genetic markers that made the Hive Collective's reproductive cycle possible. Within a generation, their species would be unable to produce offspring, dooming them to gradual extinction. "Any signs of mutation or resistance?" she asked. "None detected," Mark replied. "The agent is too specifically tailored to their genetic structure. Even if some individuals survive the initial exposure, they'll be sterile. The species will be extinct within 50 years. Sarah looked out at the planet below, where billions of aliens were breathing their last breaths. She felt no satisfaction, only the cold certainty that this was necessary for humanity's survival. The aliens had proven that they could not coexist with humans as equals. Therefore, they would not coexist at all. The resistance ends the battle for Nexus Prime lasted 3 days. When it was over, the Hive Collective's military forces had been completely destroyed, their orbital defenses reduced to floating debris, and their population centers converted into smoldering ruins. The last organized resistance to human expansion had ended. Captain Miguel Santos led his Marine unit through the ruins of the Council Chamber, where the decision to execute Elena Vasquez had been made. The chamber was empty now, its alien occupants either dead or fled. Only the memorial plaque remained, marking the spot where humanity's last ambassador had died. "Captain," his sergeant reported, "we've secured the building. All enemy personnel have been eliminated." Miguel nodded, then activated his communication device. "Command, this is Captain Santos. The council chamber is secured. We found the execution site." The response came from Admiral Martinez. "Understood, Captain. Plant the memorial beacon and prepare for extraction." Miguel removed a small device from his equipment pack and placed it carefully on the spot where Elena had died. The beacon would broadcast a simple message across the galaxy. "Here died Ambassador Elena Vasquez, whose murder awakened humanity's true nature. Let all who see this remember the price of threatening the human race." The new empire in the months that followed, the transformation of galactic civilization accelerated. Human colonies spread across former alien worlds, their terraforming technology converting even the most hostile environments into habitable paradises. The surviving alien species watched in terrified fascination as humanity reshaped the galaxy according to their vision. President Chun, now calling herself Empress of the Human Galactic Empire, established her capital on the former Council homeworld. The alien architecture was systematically demolished and replaced with human designs that spoke of power and permanence. The message was clear: the age of alien dominance was over. "Your Imperial Majesty," reported General Patricia Harrison, "now serving as military governor of the inner colonies, we've completed the relocation of the surviving alien populations. They've been settled on designated reservation worlds under strict human supervision." Chin studied the holographic display showing the new order. Green zones indicated human-controlled space, which now encompassed nearly 80% of the galaxy. The remaining areas were either uninhabited or home to the few alien species that had submitted to human authority. "What about the ones who refused to submit?" Chin asked. "They're being dealt with according to Protocol 7, Harrison replied. "No alien species will be permitted to maintain independent military forces or advanced technology. Those who resist are eliminated." Chin nodded approvingly. The protocol was harsh but necessary. Humanity had learned that coexistence required absolute dominance. Any species capable of threatening human interests would be reduced to a primitive state or eliminated entirely. The loyal servants, not all alien species, had resisted human expansion. The Cetacean Collective, aquatic beings from the Trident system, had immediately surrendered when human forces arrived in their space. Their leader, Prime Swimmer Delphinus, had chosen pragmatism over pride. Ambassador Delphinus, Chin addressed the alien diplomat in her throne room. Your species has proven that cooperation with humanity is possible. You will be rewarded for your wisdom. The cetacean's translated response was humble and grateful. Your Imperial Majesty, we serve at the pleasure of the human empire. Our people ask only for the privilege of contributing to humanity's grand design. Chin smiled. This was how alien species should behave. The cetacean collective had been allowed to maintain their civilization in exchange for absolute loyalty to human authority. They provided raw materials, served as laborers in human industrial projects, and never questioned human decisions. Your species will be granted expanded territory in the Outer Rim, Chin announced. You will govern these worlds in humanity's name, ensuring that they contribute to the Empire's growth and prosperity. Delphinus prostrated himself in gratitude. Thank you, Your Imperial Majesty. The Cetacean Collective will never forget your generosity. The new generation in schools across human space, children learned about the war that had transformed the galaxy. The curriculum emphasized humanity's righteousness and the aliens' treachery, ensuring that future generations would never question the Empire's authority. A 10-year-old David Chen, no relation to the Empress, raised his hand in his galactic history class. Teacher, why did the aliens kill Ambassador Vasquez if they knew it would make us angry? His teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, smiled at the question. Because they were arrogant, David. They thought humanity was weak, because we preferred peace. They believed they could intimidate us into submission by murdering our representative. But we showed them they were wrong. Another student added. That's right, Ms. Rodriguez confirmed. We showed them that peace was a choice humanity made, not a weakness we suffered from. When they took away our choice, they discovered what happens when humans are forced to fight for survival. The lesson continued with images of human fleets conquering alien worlds, of colonies spreading across the galaxy, and of the new order that had emerged from the ashes of the old. The children absorbed it all, understanding that they were the inheritors of a galaxy won through strength and maintained through vigilance. The final judgment 5 years after Elena Vasquez's execution, the transformation was complete. The Galactic Council was a memory, its former member species either extinct or reduced to servitude. Humanity ruled the galaxy with an iron fist, their expansion continuing toward the galactic rim and beyond. And the memorial chamber built on the site of Elena's death, a simple inscription captured the essence of what had transpired. Here died the last human who believed in alien honor. From her sacrifice arose an empire that would never again trust in the goodwill of other species. Visitors from across the galaxy came to see the memorial, their presence a reminder of humanity's journey from hopeful diplomats to galactic conquerors. The message was clear. This was the price of threatening the human race. President Chen, now aging but still sharp, gave her final address to the Empire on the 5th anniversary of Elena's death. 5 years ago, we lost our innocence. We learned that the galaxy was not a place of honor and cooperation, but a realm where only the strong survive. She paused, looking out at the representatives of subject species who filled the chamber. We did not choose this path. It was forced upon us by those who mistook our desire for peace as a sign of weakness. They are gone now, and we remain. The address concluded with humanity's new motto, carved in stone above the memorial: peace through strength, order through dominance, survival through vigilance. The eternal empire, the human galactic empire, continued to expand, its fleets pushing ever outward toward distant galaxies. The lesson of Elena Vasquez's death had been learned completely. Humanity could not afford to trust other species with their survival. They would rule through strength, govern through fear, and ensure that no alien species would ever again pose a threat to human existence. In the depths of space, automated monitoring stations watched for signs of emerging civilizations. Any species that showed potential for space travel was immediately classified as a potential threat. The Empire's response was swift and decisive. Preemptive elimination before they could develop into competitors. Children born in the Empire never knew a galaxy where humans were not the dominant species. They grew up believing that human supremacy was natural and right. that alien species existed only to serve human interests. The memory of diplomacy and cooperation faded, replaced by the cold certainty that survival required dominance. The price of victory Admiral Rosa Martinez, now Fleet Admiral of the Imperial Navy, stood in her office overlooking the sprawling capital city that had once been the Galactic Council's seat of power. 20 years had passed since Elena Vasquez's execution, and the galaxy bore little resemblance to the cooperative civilization that had once existed. Her aide, Captain Jennifer Walsh, entered with the daily intelligence briefing. Admiral, our long-range scouts have detected signs of a developing civilization in the Andromeda approach. Early analysis suggests they may achieve faster-than-light travel within the next century. Rosa's expression didn't change. The protocol for such discoveries was well established. Initiate preemptive protocol Alpha. I want a sterilization fleet dispatched immediately. Ensure that this potential threat is eliminated before they can develop beyond their home system. Yes, ma'am, Jennifer replied. The fleet will launch within the week. Rosa turned back to the window, watching human citizens go about their daily lives in a galaxy that had been conquered in their name. They lived in peace and prosperity, never knowing that their security was maintained through the systematic elimination of any species that might one day challenge human dominance. The doctrine was simple. No alien species would be permitted to develop technology that could threaten humanity. Better to commit genocide against innocents than to risk another Elena Vasquez. The underground truth in the depths of the Imperial Archives, Dr. Elizabeth Morgan worked alone in a restricted section that few humans had ever seen. As the Empire's chief historian, she had access to records that painted a different picture of the war than what was taught in schools. The classified documents told a story of preparation and paranoia that had begun long before first contact with alien species. Humanity had never truly intended peaceful coexistence. The diplomatic missions, the cultural exchanges, the trade agreements had all been elaborate intelligence operations designed to study potential enemies. Elena Vasquez herself had been unaware of the true nature of her mission. She had genuinely believed in the possibility of peace, never knowing that her government was preparing for war from the moment they met their first alien species. Her death had been tragic, but it had also been convenient, providing the justification for actions that had already been planned. Elizabeth closed the file she had been reading and stared at the wall. The official history portrayed humanity as reluctant warriors forced into conflict by alien aggression. The truth was more complex and far more disturbing. Humanity had always been predators. They had simply learned to hide their nature until the moment was right to reveal it. She thought about the children in schools across the Empire, learning about human righteousness and alien treachery. They would grow up believing that their dominance was justified, that their empire was built on defensive necessity rather than aggressive expansion. Perhaps that was for the best. The galaxy was safer under human rule, even if that safety came at the cost of freedom for every other species. Peace had been achieved, even if it was the peace of the grave for those who had dared to challenge humanity's vision of order. The Eternal Watch in the outer reaches of the galaxy, automated sentinel stations maintained their eternal vigil. Built during the war and continuously upgraded over the decades, these massive installations served as humanity's early warning system against potential threats from beyond known space. Station Commander Maria Santos received the daily reports from across her sector. Nothing had changed in the 5 years she had been stationed here. The galaxy was quiet, ordered, and utterly under human control. Commander, her communications officer called out, "We're receiving a priority transmission from the Andromeda approach. Admiral Martinez is requesting status updates on the preemptive strike against the developing civilization." Maria checked her displays. The sterilization fleet had departed 3 days ago, carrying enough firepower to reduce an entire star system to cosmic debris. By the time they finished their work, no trace would remain of the species that had dared to reach toward the stars. "Tell the Admiral that the fleet is proceeding according to schedule," Maria replied. "Estimated completion of the mission is in 47 days. Another potential threat would be eliminated before it could develop. Another species would join the countless others that had been destroyed, not for what they had done, but for what they might one day become. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy, perfect order maintained through perfect control. No wars between species, no conflicts over resources, no suffering caused by competing civilizations. There was only humanity and those they chose to permit to exist. The legacy, the memorial to Elena Vasquez, had become one of the most visited sites in the Empire. Millions of humans made pilgrimages to see the place where their species' transformation had begun. They came to honor the woman whose death had given birth to humanity's galactic dominance. The inscription on her memorial had been expanded over the years, now reading, "Here died Ambassador Elena Vasquez, whose murder revealed the true nature of alien species and awakened humanity's destiny as rulers of the galaxy. From her sacrifice arose an empire that would ensure the peace and security of the human race for all time." Tour guides told visitors about the naive diplomat who had believed in alien honor and how her death had taught humanity the hard lesson that only strength could guarantee survival. Children placed flowers at the memorial, understanding that this woman's sacrifice had given them a galaxy to inherit. The irony was lost on most visitors. Elena Vasquez had died believing in the possibility of peaceful coexistence. Her death had been used to justify the complete elimination of that possibility. She had become a martyr for the very thing she had spent her life opposing, but perhaps that didn't matter. The galaxy was at peace under human rule. No species suffered under oppression because no species existed to suffer. The Empire had achieved what the old Galactic Council never could: perfect harmony through perfect unity. There was only one civilization in the galaxy now, and that civilization was human. The war that had begun with Elena Vasquez's execution was over. Humanity had won so completely that there were no enemies left to fight, no rivals left to challenge their supremacy. The galaxy belonged to humanity, and it would remain theirs for as long as the stars continued to burn. In the end, the Galactic Council had been right about one thing: humanity was indeed a threat to galactic civilization. They had simply been wrong about the scale of that threat. They had feared human expansion and human ambition, never imagining that humanity was capable of becoming the only species in the galaxy. The age of the Galactic Council was over. The age of countless alien civilizations was over. The age of humanity was eternal.